I don't know why I didn't think of this sooner, but clearly, John Fetterman is a creation of the Republican Party. Some kind of cyborg or robotic humanoid. I don't know what it is, but I mean, think about it. The evidence is overwhelming, and maybe somebody knew this before I did. That's a distinct possibility. Maybe somebody knew what was going on. I don't know if there's a Reddit thread somewhere that has all the details about this conspiracy theory, but after hearing him yesterday on the Sean Hannity show, after hearing what John Fetterman's been saying on social media about the Democrat shutdown, about the Schumer shutdown, after all of this stuff, it's clear to me that John Fetterman is not a Democrat. And I think what may have happened is, here's what I think happened. And there's a whole story that goes along with it, and we'll delve into that. And I'm going to give you the proof here too. This isn't just like I said, I don't like to just throw out theories there. I want to give you the truth. I'm not here to just make up stories. This is not story time with Mark K. I am not a drag queen at some kind of school or library in a blue state. This is not what that is. I'm not a drag queen in any state. I should probably specify. that. I'm not a drag queen, period, but definitely not one of those story time. It doesn't matter. The fact of the matter is that I have what I believe is solid proof that John Fetterman is not a Democrat, that he may have been a robot built maybe by Elon Musk. Because think about this. There's a lot of proof, and I don't want to get ahead of myself, but there's a lot of proof pointing to the fact that John Fetterman was a creation of the Republican Party to infiltrate the Democrats and destroy them from within. And I don't know. It just seems to me like it's more obvious every single day. In addition to that, we've got a White House press briefing with Caroline Leavitt coming up here in just a minute as the government shutdown continues. The government shutdown continues. The fake outrage, or as I like to call it, foutrage. I just came up with that one. The foutrage out there about the White House East Wing being destroyed. It's ridiculous to me how they will glom on to pretty much anything they can. But the foutrage is it's criminal almost, the way that these media outlets are glomming onto President Donald Trump, beautifying the White House, pretending like they pretend like he's ripping down, like shredding the Constitution or something like that. The East Wing, fun fact, is I think the same age as my house. I'm not even real. I think it's the same age as Mar-a-Lago. I'm going to have to do some digging into the Marchives, by the way, so we can, that's when I haven't used Marchives in a very long time. And then, of course, we've got, in addition to all of that, we've got President Donald Trump, who's attacking fake news reporters for, well, being fake news reporters, which is really the best reason to attack the fake news reporters. If you're going to be a fake news reporter, you got to at least expect that the president's going to come at you a couple times a week. Listen, if you have not yet subscribed to this channel, consider this your personal invitation to do so. Somewhere on whatever platform you're watching, there's a button that says follow or like or subscribe or notify me. Any of those things will do. Just hit the bell or the thumb up or whatever it is, a little plus sign, and make sure that you're following us because we got content galore. We got content oozing out of every orifice. And like, you can't even slow me down. I try. People are like, whoa, slow down. I was at the REC meeting a couple weeks ago, and one of the people on the board said, I don't know if you follow Mark K on social media, but he posts. And then he paused and went, a lot. Which is true. I do post a lot, but it's not my fault. It's because there's so much that I need to make sure you're aware of. There's so many things that I want you to make sure you're privy to. I want you to be prepared for pretty much anything because I'm not always going to be there for you, folks. And sometimes you need to, it's like you need to teach everybody. You need to teach your children how to live in a world without you. That's kind of what. I'm not going anywhere, but I'm saying, I'm only on for an hour. There's like 23 other hours of the day. You're going to need to be able to take care of yourself. Listen, we should probably start with, the NBA arrests. I'm not going to start with that, but if we have time later, I got to get into this NBA arrest because I don't care about the NBA. I don't care about illegal gambling. What I do care about is that La Cosa Nostra has now been reinvoked as a criminal organization. And as somebody who grew up watching Godfather movies repeated, like literally on repeat. I went to film school in the 90s. So if you go to film school in the 90s, it's like Quentin Tarantino, The Godfather. That's all they really showed you. it's really interesting to me to see La Cosa Nostra coming back into popular. And it's just so fun to say, isn't it? The NBA and La Cosa Nostra, which even Kash Patel, you could tell. Yeah, he had a lot of fun. He had a lot of fun saying that. Before we get to any of that, though, before we even get to John Fetterman being a cyborg developed by the Republican Party, let's start with, shall we? I don't know who this woman is. I guess she's like Jennifer Welsh. Is that her name? She used to be apparently some kind of Bravo host or Bravo producer, or I don't know what she was. But she's the one that was interviewing. You may remember yesterday we played this clip over and over again of Jen Peppermint Psaki ragging on Usha Vance and saying that Usha Vance was being held against her will by her husband, J.D. Vance, and that J.D. Vance was a Manchurian candidate. You remember, we played that clip over. I'm not going to play it again because Jen Psaki gives me a headache. But this woman, I guess she has a podcast and regularly posts stuff. And she had Abby Phillips on from CNN. And they were talking about Stephen Miller. And listen to what this brainiac said about Stephen Miller on her podcast.
Stephen Miller is a white supremacist. He is, and he's basically running the White House. They keep Trump busy with his decorating projects. He's got building the arch now. He's got his Oval Office design. And then you have these real sociopaths that are real anti-Semites, true white supremacists like Stephen Miller. And even though he's Jewish, he's like a Nazi Jew.
Well, okay. The thing about I love podcasting and I teach people how to podcast, but the one bad thing about podcasting is that literally anybody can have a podcast. Anybody can have a podcast, anybody can get up and anybody can say whatever dumb things they want to say. And this is proof of that. Stephen Miller, she says, Stephen Miller is a Nazi Jew. Is that what she said?
He's like a Nazi Jew.
Yeah. Okay. He's like a Nazi Jew, which, I don't know if they know what the Nazis are and the Jewish people. I don't know if they were understanding the history of the Nazis and the Jews, but it's not one of those things where you're going to be both. You're not going to be both. It's like my good buddy Herman Cain, God rest his soul. They used to call him a white supremacist. Larry Elder was called a white supremacist. And again, black guy, white supremacist, it doesn't really, it's a real tough sell, right? But that's what the Democrats are left with. They have these lunatics on the left, what did I call them yesterday? I called them something yesterday and I thought it was harsh, but then I went back I was editing the podcast and I was listening to it and I go, no, that was actually the perfect. I called them, what was it? Oh, I called them bitter middle-aged Karens. Yeah, I think that's right. Bitter middle-aged Karens, BMKs, we'll call them. These BMKs are now out there saying that Stephen Miller is a Nazi Jew.
He's like a Nazi Jew.
Which again, just doesn't make any, and I didn't even, you know what? I stopped after that. I didn't even continue to hear what Abby Phillips responded, because Abby Phillips, now say what you will about Abby Phillips, and she's on CNN and she does that show where, what's his name? Scott Jennings is always like attacking, getting attacked and trying to, defend himself from Anna Navarro and all those other lunatics. Anyway, so Abby Phillips, let me just hear the whole clip again, because I want to make sure, I want to see what she said. She's usually not one to jump in and defend anybody, but she does have a lot of, experience kind of keeping the peace in these situations.
Stephen Miller is a white supremacist. He is, and he's basically running the White House. They keep Trump busy with his decorating projects. He's got building the arch now. He's got his Oval Office design. And then you have these real sociopaths that are real anti-Semites, true white supremacists like Stephen Miller. And even though he's Jewish, he's like a Nazi Jew.
Well, look, I can't speak to what Stephen Miller's motivations are. I've met him. I've talked to him. I've interviewed him.
How tall is he?
Yeah, we're dying to know.
Oh God, I can't remember that.
Short?
I truly cannot remember. Okay. I am short, so my understanding of people's height is not great. I do think that you have to understand what motivates the people who are in power. If people are in power, you got to understand what their ideology is. Like, truly understand what motivates them, where they're going. And I do think that is, that requires listening. I mean, I listen to what the Steve Bannons of the world say, I listen very carefully to what Stephen Miller says, because it really tells you where this is all heading.
Okay, so she's not really I mean, it would have been nice if she said, no, hold on. He's not a Nazi Jew. That's not. She goes, well, I don't really know what his motivation is. I think it's not. I think it's not the same motivation that the Nazi. I'm pretty sure that would have been easy out for her, but she didn't want to. She didn't want to take that route. That's okay though, because when you're a Democrat operative, when you work for someplace like CNN, you have to really toe the line. And towing the line is something that, I mean, your job depends on it. If you stop towing the line, then you get thrown out the door. You get shown the door. And now, and with CNN on the auction block, like every single day, CNN is like for sale. Like they're up again. Somebody else wants to buy it. It's crazy. You can never keep track of who's going to buy Walt Disney or Paramount or whatever these companies are. It's just bizarre. So I guess you can't really be on one side or the other fully. You always have that kind of wishy-washy wiggle room. Now, The View on the other side, they don't care who owns ABC. They don't care what, they're always going to lie to you. And Whoopi Goldberg yesterday spewed a whole bunch of lies about President Donald Trump and the East wing of the White House and everything else that is happening.
This will also be decided. This is the part that really tickles me. It's going to be decided by some of the same Justice Department lawyers who worked with him on these past cases.
What she's talking about there is the $230 million that Donald Trump wants in a settlement from the Department of Justice for going after him with bogus charges and forcing him and his family and his business to defend themselves with hundreds of millions of dollars of legal expenses. That's what she's talking about. But she's got more to say, of course.
So Americans, the question is, are you on board with all of this? This is like a cash grab. Yeah. And your taxes are probably going to be paying for that.
That tacky, gaudy ballroom.
I mean, it's kind of kooky.
Yeah. By the way, this ballroom is not at all tacky. And if any one of those women showed up at a Democrat fundraiser or a Democrat party in a ballroom like the one that Donald Trump's going to build, they would be beside themselves. They would be like, oh my God, it's amazing. This is so great. Wow. This is so nice. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for inviting me, blah, blah. But they know they're not going to get an invitation. So what are they going to do? All they can do is complain about it. Joe and Mika Brzezinski, they also were complaining about, hold on, I had it here just a minute ago. They were also complaining about this ballroom, and they were also complaining about Donald Trump building something, cool on the White House. And again, they were, I guess you would say, hold on, I'm trying to find it here. They were also, I guess you would say, trying to push the narrative that this is not being paid for by, what do you call it? What's the word I'm looking for? I guess independent donors. It's being paid by the taxpayers, which we know is false. And I had this a minute ago. I don't know where it went. Mika and Joe. Hang on. I guess I lost it somewhere. Oh, wait. I think I have it here. Hang on. I think I got it right here.
But yeah, far different. Yeah.
Painful. I mean, this is historic structure.
It's history being torn to shreds. And again, is everybody, so if somebody wants to go into the White House, the next person wants to just knock down all the walls and turn it into a disco, Congress can't do anything. I mean, seriously, you're destroying like one of the most historic structures on the planet.
Yeah. And the cost.
And are we saying that whoever we elect president has the right to destroy? Like what? Just tear things up, tear it to the ground, turn it into something else? Kind of crazy.
I don't think it's not your home that you purchased in Jersey.
No, it's not yours. You rent it from the American people for 4 years.
You don't actually rent it from the American people. There's no lease agreement. You just go in. But as the president of the United States, fun fact, you can redecorate the White House any way you want, and you can add to it. And it's not that he's tearing down the White House. It's that he's adding on to the White. Clearly, Mika and Joe have never done any home renovations because you tear down a little bit and then you rebuild it. You build back better. That's one of their heroes always said, build back better. But I guess they don't appreciate it in this day and age. You know who does like it? John Fetterman. John Fetterman from Pennsylvania, the only Democrat in the entire world who likes Donald Trump's ballroom.
Even completed it anyway. And I think everything that I've seen, the plans are going to be done in a tasteful and historical kind of a way. I mean, they're not putting in a Dave and Buster's kind of a situation here. So I think upgrading some of these facilities seems pretty normal overall. I don't have a strong opinion on it, but it's not a point where I'm going to freak out or make some kind of weird demandings or have a hearing on it.
If he self-funds it and gets some donations from the private sector, would you be okay with that?
I think if it saves the American taxpayers much more too, I think that's fine. But regardless, it's an investment on the White House, and that's probably won't even be close to finished by the time he even leaves the office.
Well, I mean, again, there you got John Fetterman. By the way, how awesome would a Dave and Buster's be? Wouldn't that be great? How awesome would a Dave and Buster's be at the White House? That'd be really incredible. That would really get the youth of America involved in politics again, although they kind of are. I will say this though, that's the most sensible response I've heard from any lawmaker, let alone a Democrat lawmaker, since this whole ballroom scandal, quote unquote, has broken. That's the most. He goes, look, I don't know what everyone's problem is. Everything I've seen, it seems tasteful. It seems like it's going to be done in the proper way, and if it saves the taxpayers money, then like, who cares? I mean, it's not, Donald Trump's not tearing down history. It's not like, I remember a statue of Columbus, Christopher Columbus, a historic statue of a historic figure in Columbus, Ohio, that was ripped down and tossed into, I want to say, the river. And I didn't see Joe and Mika crying about that. I didn't see Whoopi Goldberg crying about the history that was being destroyed then. Here we have a refurbishing or a restoration of the White House, and now all of a sudden everyone's losing their minds. John Fetterman is really kind of, here's why I think that he's a cyborg built by the Republican Party. Do you remember during the election, what happened was Dr. Oz was the candidate. John Fetterman was running against Dr. Oz in Pennsylvania, and it seemed like Dr. Oz was not a good candidate. It seemed like Dr. Oz was not getting through to people and to the voters. It seemed like Dr. Oz may not have been the person that the best choice to try and win this particular race in Pennsylvania. And so John Fetterman, on a night of the primary, had a stroke, quote unquote, and he went to the hospital. And he won the primary while he was at the hospital. That was the big news. And then he came out and he did the debate and everything else. Is it possible that stroke was somehow induced by somebody on the Republican Party at the hospital? He didn't necessarily get recovery from a stroke, but maybe he was turned into some kind of cyborg robot. I mean, the guy's got a big, like you always see the cartoon of the big doofy guy, and there's like a little guy, controlling him inside. You need a big package to really put. I mean, if there's like rechargeable batteries and things like that, if there's like, all kinds of, kind of pumps or wires, then you need a big package. You couldn't like create a robot out of somebody tiny, like Nancy Pelosi or something like that. And it would have to be a big guy. And so they create this cyborg John Fetterman, and they kind of insert him back into the Democrat Party so that he can slowly but surely do their bidding. Because more and more, John Fetterman talks like a Republican than he does a Democrat. He was asked about the government shutdown. Here's what he had to say about that.
Are you surprised that vote after vote, it's just been 3 Democrats time and again who voted for this bill? Does that surprise you?
Yeah, it's Groundhog Day, and I'm just saying, and it's not entertaining. That's a great movie, but this is shitty. And now it's like real damage are now touching the lives of regular Americans, and we all lose, and it's embarrassing to our allies and to our enemies abroad.
We all lose, and it's embarrassing. And I apologize for the wordy dirt. I always forget that. Anyway, but it's embarrassing. He goes, yeah, it's Groundhog Day, but it's not funny. And it's embarrassing to our allies, and it's embarrassing to our enemies, and it's embarrassing to the United States of America. Then he was asked about the filibuster, because, whenever you come to a deadlock like this, and whenever you have, say, the United States government in a shutdown, and you're trying to reopen it, the question always pops up, hey, should we use the nuclear option? And here's what he said about that.
Republican colleagues have proposed nuking the filibuster to force the government to reopen. What do you?
Yeah, of course. Carve it out for that. Absolutely. We ran on that. We ran on killing the filibuster, and now we love it. You know, it's like carve it out so we can move on. And I support it because it makes it more difficult to shut the government down in the future, and that's where it's entirely appropriate. And I don't want to hear any Democrats clutching their pearls about the filibuster. We all ran on it. I ran on that
Yeah, and that's and then then it's like, oh, time to recharge, time to go back to Central Command and plug back into the wall. But he goes, look, I ran on that. He points out something that the Democrats want you to forget. They never bring this up. Only Republicans bring this up, which is why I believe that John Fetterman is a Republican plant. Whether he's a robot or a cyborg or they just brainwashed him, you want to talk about a Manchurian candidate, it could be John Fetterman, because he literally said, we, the Democrats, we ran on killing the filibuster, and now all of a sudden we love it. We ran, he goes, I ran on it. I ran on nuking the filibuster because, well, we didn't want it to be an impediment to our agenda, but now that we're not in control, we love the filibuster and we'll do anything to protect it. That's what every Republican has been saying. Democrats want you to forget. They want you to forget that they used to love CRs. They want you to forget that it used to be deplorable and unconscionable to keep the government closed when Americans were suffering. And now they're like, yeah, Americans are suffering, but what did Catherine Clark say? It's the only leverage we have. So we're going to keep the Americans suffering. Why? It's leverage. It gives us leverage over the Republican Party. That and the filibuster. Now they love the filibuster and they love suffering Americans. They ran against killing the filibuster and helping suffering Americans. Isn't that weird how everything switches except for John Fetterman. John Fetterman on Sean Hannity yesterday called Kamala Harris he said, I knew that we'd lost the election when Kamala Harris did this.
When then the Vice President Harris referred to President Trump as a fascist, and I knew absolutely we lost the plot at that point. You know, if you call the president or someone like a fascist, you're effectively calling the people that are going to vote for him, and then they must be fascists too, or they support fascism and those things, and that's just not true. That's just not it. I happen to know, and I love a lot of people that voted for the president, and they're not fascists, they're not Nazis, they're not trying to destroy the Constitution and all those things. They just happen to have a different priorities, and they love our country in the same ways that Democrats do as well. So I refuse to do those kinds of a thing, because that kind of extreme kinds of rhetoric makes it easier for those kinds of extreme kinds of actions, even like what happened to poor Charlie Kirk and that. And now why you can't allow people to grieve and now use that an opportunity to criticize or to turn it into something. It's like, it's just basic humanity there. And like, we're forgetting that we need each other. We need each other here. And now I refuse to be a part of it and comparing people to Hitler and those things, because if that's what's required to win, then I refuse to.
All right, there you go. John Fetterman saying, look, when Kamala Harris said fascist, then I knew we'd lost the story. When they started calling people Nazis, I knew it was over. Because he goes, I know Republicans. I have friends who support President Donald Trump. They're not Nazis. They're not. You know who is apparently? Apparently, Stephen Miller is a Jewish Nazi.
He's like a Nazi Jew.
I'm sorry, he's like a Nazi Jew. Is what I meant. That's what I meant to say. Not Nazi Jew, not a Jewish Nazi. But that's John Fetterman talking like a Republican, saying, why is it that when Charlie Kirk was murdered, we didn't give these people time to grieve? Why was it when Charlie Kirk was murdered, there were people out there celebrating and saying, woohoo, let's do another one. Set him up again. John Fetterman is so unpopular in his own party that they want to primary him. Why? Because he speaks the truth, because he doesn't toe the line of left-wing lunacy. And what's his name? Sean Hannity asked him about that.
Take a few positions that don't toe the line. They're talking about when your cycle comes up, they want to primary you. What is your response to them?
I really, I'm not afraid of telling the truth. As I've said, I'll be the Democrat that refuses to lie to the base and pretend that this is right. You know, I'm proud to stand with Israel. I'm proud to say that we need to secure our border. I think it's entirely appropriate to bomb the Iranian nuclear facilities. And now I refuse to call my fellow citizens as they're fascists or Nazis or those things. I will agree also that we must keep our government open. And if somebody wants to primary me or the party wants to vote me out, it's like I'm going to go down being honest and telling you that this is wrong to do these kinds of things, and I refuse to do that. I think we need to be a big tent party. That doesn't sound like if.
Yeah, that doesn't sound like a big tent party. That sounds like a lame party. That sounds like the lamest party I've ever heard in my entire life. John Fetterman is out there saying they want to primary me. Okay, why? Because I'd like to keep the government open? They want to primary me. Why? Because I refuse to call Donald Trump a Nazi? They want to primary me. Why? Because I feel like we should work together to serve Americans? These are all the reasons why John Fetterman is going to be primaried by his own party. Chuck Schumer, same thing. Chuck Schumer was threatened with a primary because he wanted to keep the government open. He said, we can talk and we can negotiate with the president, but we've got to keep the government open. And the people, the left-wing lunatics in his party went ballistic. John Fetterman, this guy, I mean, here's this video that he released yesterday. Let me see if I can find it. This is John Fetterman in his own words yesterday, making about as much sense as anybody could ever make.
Hi, here we are, and our government remains closed. And I think that's failure. And I'm the guy that's going to consistently vote for country over party. I'm always going to vote for paying our military over the party. I'm always going to vote for paying the Capitol Police over my party. And I'm going to continue to fight for the 2 million Pennsylvanians that depend on SNAP to feed themselves. And I'm also going to fight for the same 400,020 Pennsylvanians that depend on those tax credits to make health insurance more affordable. Two things are true, and now we can fight for all of them as long as our government is open. My vote is going to remain firmly on keeping our government open, and I'm going to continue to fight for all of those Pennsylvanians that I'm honored to represent here.
I mean, all of those, again, are things that any Republican would say, well, most Republicans would say, are the reason why they're fighting. But the Democrats are fighting against it, and the Democrats are just dirty. Yeah, Mike Johnson was at the House yesterday. He was asked about this continued government shutdown and when the government shutdown is going to be over. And he said, I mean, it's up to the Democrats, but they're not only enjoying this, they don't care about the American people. And this is where it gets really tricky. This is why I think that the shutdown could last a really long time, because you have in the Democrat Party now, you have 15 people in the House of Representatives. You've got 47 in the Senate. You have 47 people in the Senate, with the exception of Angus King, John Fetterman, and the other lady from Nevada, who I always forget. With the exception of those three, so let's say you were looking at like 44 people. You've got 44 people in the Senate who just don't care that Americans are suffering. I mean, what do you do with that? How do you negotiate with that? Typically, you go, look, Americans are suffering, open up the government. But the assumption when you're negotiating from that point, when you're trying to get, when you're trying to delve into somebody's soul and say, look, let's talk about humanity. Let's talk about the human factor. The people out there are suffering. When you have Democrats that go on TV and say, yeah, we know that, we just don't care, like Catherine Clark did, then it makes it really difficult. You can't appeal to someone's humanity when they have no humanity. And that's what Mike Johnson is realizing with the modern day Democrat Party.
Well, I'm one that really believed that after the Hate America rally on Saturday, that's what we called it, because it was funded by George Soros and co-sponsored by the Communist Party of the USA and many other nefarious groups. But we really thought that after that display, that Chuck Schumer would come to his senses. Remember, he's been in Congress for 44 years, and every year until now he has said, and he even said this year, as recently as March, that shutting the government down would cause great pain to the American people, and it could never be done, should never be done. Well, he changed his tune because he's trying to appeal to that radical leftist base in the party, because he's terrified. Because the last time he did the right thing, when he voted for this identical CR back in March, he took a lot of heat. He's unwilling to do that again because he's afraid he's going to receive a challenge from one of the Marxist leftists in New York, or maybe AOC. So that's really the sum total of it. Yesterday, Joe, we're losing heart a little bit because yesterday the second-ranked Democrat in the House, Whip Clark, Catherine Clark, was on an interview that you probably saw a clip of because it's gone around the world, and she said the quiet part out loud. She said, "We know that families are going to suffer because of this shutdown, but," she said, "this is one of the few leverage times we have." She admitted that they have chosen to shut the government down to use the people as leverage, and real people are being harmed because of it.
Yeah, and he goes, look, that's tough for us. That puts us in a tough negotiating position because when we say, hey, let's talk about, let's get down to human decency, you can't negotiate human decency with people who have none. They don't care that Americans are suffering. That's why this thing, if they don't care that you're suffering today, they're not going to care that you're suffering tomorrow or on Thanksgiving or on Christmas or next year.
Good afternoon, everybody.
We'll get back to this in a minute.
I apologize for my tardiness today, so let's get right to it. We'll begin today with some scheduling announcements for President Trump's upcoming trip to Asia. Tomorrow night at 11 p.m., the president will depart the White House to fly to Malaysia, where he will arrive on Sunday morning local time.
Malaysia.
Flight. President Trump will participate in a bilateral meeting with the Prime Minister of Malaysia in the afternoon, and then he will attend the ASEAN Leaders Working Dinner that evening. On Monday morning local time, the president will fly to Tokyo. Tuesday morning local time, President Trump will participate in a bilateral meeting with the new Prime Minister of Japan.
Fun.
On Wednesday morning local time, the president will fly to Busan, where he will participate in a bilateral meeting with the President of the Republic of Korea, deliver keynote remarks at the APEC CEO luncheon, and then participate in a U.S. APEC Leaders Working Dinner.
That's APEC, not APAC.
On Thursday morning local time, President Trump will participate in a bilateral meeting with President Xi of the People's Republic of China before departing to return home to Washington, D.C. On Thursday night, upon arrival in Washington, President Trump and First Lady Melania Trump will participate in Halloween at the White House.
That's my
where
favorite.
They will welcome law enforcement, military, and foster families.
I love Halloween at the White
Many of us
House.
look forward to that.
Yeah.
In other news, we are now on day 23 of the Democrat government shutdown.
Did she say Democrat?
Senate Democrats have voted
She said
12
Democrat.
separate times now to keep the government closed.
Democrats.
Innocent Americans are suffering every day as a result.
True.
More than 500,000 civilian federal employees will miss a full paycheck tomorrow. Thousands of small business loans are going unapproved each month. This means almost $4 billion in capital is being withheld from small businesses across the country. The Democrat shutdown is also causing severe impacts at airports across the country. In one single day this week, the FAA had to issue ground stops impacting flights at Houston's George Bush Intercontinental Airport and Hobby Airport. 13,000 air traffic controllers who ensure that we all fly safely are continuing to work without pay. This is egregious and truly sad. Some of them are reportedly being forced to turn to driving for Uber and taking on other second jobs to make ends meet as the Democrats continue to shut down the government. Pilots are calling on Democrats to end this dangerous political game. The president of the Southwest Airlines Pilot Association called for the clean continuing resolution to be passed, saying, quote, "Our air traffic controllers and the broader air traffic system are already operating under immense pressure. A government shutdown only compounds that stress and threatens the efficiency of our skies." The Airline Pilots Association International, which represents more than 80,000 pilots, is sounding the alarm as well. They said this shutdown is undermining our system's safety. Resources are stretched thin, negotiations are delayed, and strain grows daily. With the Thanksgiving holiday approaching, we are nearing the busiest travel period of the entire year.
I'm actually
when
traveling
millions
before
of
that.
Americans will go to airports to spend time with their loved ones.
I didn't even think about that.
Let us be very clear from the White House today. If the Democrats continue to keep the government closed, we fear there will be significant flight delays, disruptions, and cancellations in major airports across the country this holiday season. If Democrats continue to shut down the government, they will also be shutting down American air travel. The White House is in constant communication with the air traffic controllers, with the airline associations, and with them, we urge Democrats to please pass the continuing resolution so we can just end this madness and this chaos and reopen the government. These are very avoidable consequences. The unnecessary pain, unfortunately, does not end there. Funding for the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program known as SNAP, which provides food benefits to low-income families, is beginning to lapse this week in some states. If Democrats continue to hold Americans hostage, there will not be enough funds to provide SNAP benefits for more than 40 million Americans on November 1st. That is next week. Democrats are solely responsible for all of this unnecessary pain. Why are they doing it? To give taxpayer-funded healthcare benefits to illegal aliens, some of whom are violent criminals. During the 4 years of Joe Biden's administration, the Democrats forced Border Patrol to admit illegal aliens into our country with no legal status and minimal screening. A significant number of these individuals are the worst of the worst criminals: rapists, pedophiles, murderers, and even members of the terrorist watch list. Despite having no legal status, paroled aliens were able to file for work authorization, receive Social Security numbers, and access other benefits like Medicaid that are meant for Americans.
Yeah, that seems weird.
Since I've found many in this room to repeatedly deny the reality that Democrats gave Medicaid benefits to illegals, and they continue to seek to do just that, I've brought a few verified examples for you today.
Fantastic.
These are examples of some of the illegals who received Medicaid benefits under President Biden's leadership, and This is what Democrats are wanting to do. This is why they are continuing to keep the government closed. An illegal alien from Laos was arrested for murder, robbery, and felony possession of a firearm. An illegal alien from Guatemala who was arrested for rape and burglary. An illegal alien from El Salvador who was arrested for strangulation, DUI, and burglary. An illegal alien from Mexico who was arrested for attempted murder. The Democrats' open border policies allowed these threats into our country, and then they provided them with free health care. The president and Republicans, through the One Big Beautiful Bill, implemented a common sense reform to end this fraudulent scheme. But that's why the Democrats are continuing to shut down the federal government. They are trying to reverse this and restore taxpayer-funded health care for illegal aliens like these. Throughout this shutdown, Democrats have said this quiet part out loud. Senator Chuck Schumer, the leader of the caucus that is refusing to open the government, said, quote, "Every day gets better as the shutdown continues."
Every day gets better for us.
Ask air traffic controllers if every day is getting better, Senator Schumer, and they will tell you absolutely not.
Nope.
House Democrat Catherine Clark said, "There are going to be families that are going to suffer. We take that responsibility seriously, but this is one of the few leverage points that we have."
Yep.
Here is a House Democrat who is admitting that they are using Americans who are suffering as political leverage.
We all knew
and
that.
Senator Bernie Sanders said, "If you reopen the government, we lose our leverage."
Well, he's been saying that for years.
Pure partisan games. A senior Democrat aide said the party will not end the shutdown, quote, "short of planes falling out of the sky." That is truly a disturbing statement. The Democrats clearly don't care about this suffering. They care about playing political games against President Trump, and this dangerous charade needs to end. The president and Republicans' position has been clear and unchanged. Pass a clean, nonpartisan funding bill to reopen the government. And then we can talk about all of the partisan issues that the Democrats wish to. If you're watching at home, we urge you to call your Democrat senators and tell them to put our country over their party and reopen the government today. Here in our new media seat, we have Brittany Gibson of Axios. Brittany, why don't you start us off for our Q&A today? Thank you for being here.
Two questions, if I may, Caroline. First is, we understand that the president and Republicans will not negotiate on ACA extensions until the government reopens. If and when that happens, what does the president think should be, or what are his plans for preventing rising healthcare costs for Americans?
It's a very good question, and I'll leave that to the president to negotiate that when Democrats vote to reopen the government. When it comes to lowering healthcare costs, the president is deeply committed to this. It's why he has spent so much time and effort negotiating with Big Pharma. to lower the healthcare costs of prescription drugs. All of you have been in the Oval Office for multiple different announcements. We've had these most favored nations deals with these large pharmaceutical companies committing to lowering drug costs in this country. So it's something the president wants to do. And Brittany, one more point. I'll just point out the irony in Democrats holding the government and the American public hostage over a healthcare system that they created. The healthcare system was called Obamacare.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because Democrats and President Obama implemented. And Republicans have always said it's a broken system, yes, but they caused it, and now they want to shut down the government to fix it. We need to open the government, and then we can have these very important conversations about healthcare.
Well said. Well said.
Foreign students. During the campaign, President Trump said he wanted to make it easier for foreign students to work at U.S. companies, staple a green card to every diploma. But the changes from several agencies now on H-1Bs are adding more obstacles to that. The administration is being sued over those changes. Can you explain the changes in the president's thinking on H-1Bs?
Administration will fight these lawsuits in court. The president's main priority has always been to put American workers first, and also to strengthen our visa system. We know for far too long the H-1B visa system has been spammed with fraud, basically, and that's driven down American wages. So the president wants to refine this system, which is part of the reason he implemented these new policies. These actions are lawful, they are necessary, and we'll continue to fight this battle in court. Garrett.
Two questions on different topics.
Hi, Garrett.
Indulge me. On the pardon of Changpeng Zhao, and apologies if I'm mispronouncing that name, Binance has significant business interests with World Liberty Financial, the president's family's crypto company. How do you respond to the allegations from Democrats that this is a corrupt act?
I would respond and say the president is exercising his constitutional
authority no, it's not.
To grant clemency requests. And the president and the White House have a very thorough examination of every pardon request that comes to the president's desk. It is thoroughly reviewed by the White House Counsel Office, and I spoke with our great White House counsel about the pardon. I would respond and this was an overly prosecuted case by the Biden administration. Even the judge in the case admitted that the Biden administration was pursuing a egregious over-sentencing of this individual, and the previous administration was very hostile to the cryptocurrency industry. So the president wants to correct this overreach of the Biden administration's misjustice, and he exercised his constitutional authority to do so. And to the Democrats, I would just say there's nothing more corrupt than what President Biden did on his way out the door, pardoning his extremely corrupt son and many of his associates.
On the ballroom, the first of which will probably be several questions about this.
The ballroom.
Is it a big story?
It seems that way. The president's cost estimate has changed several times. I think it's up to $300 million now. Given the nature of all this, will the White House commit to releasing all of the donors and how much they're spending and how much of his own money the president is putting on the line to this?
We have released the full list of donors thus far.
I mean,
perhaps there
I
will
feel
be
like
more
that's already
people
out
who
there.
want to generously contribute to this project.
It's not a secret, folks.
And the president, yes, has committed his own resources. And when he releases that information, which I'm very confident he will, you will all see that.
We'll see a dollar figure from the president?
Yes, he will. And I would also just add the president has been incredibly transparent. I would reject any notion otherwise when it comes to this ballroom project. It's something he personally has obviously taken an interest into and has talked with all of you in this room many times about. You have seen the model in the Oval Office. Last night he showed that for you. But when this plan was presented and when these renderings, as soon as they were complete, the president directed me to come out here and to share them with all of you. I did an entire opening remarks about what this ballroom project was going to look like.
I remember.
With any construction project, there are changes over time as you assess what the project is going to look like, and we'll continue to keep you apprised of all of those changes, but just trust the process. This is going to be a magnificent addition to the White House for many years to come, and it's not costing the taxpayers anything. The president is privately funding this ballroom addition to the White House grounds. Jennifer.
To follow up on that, one thing that's not in the president's model is the East Wing bunker, the president's emergency operations center. Can you say if his update, that $300 million, does that include the cost for upgrading that bunker?
Look, like any security enhancements that are made on the White House grounds, those will be made and maintained by United States Secret Service.
We don't talk about security enhancements at the White House press briefing.
Cost of the ballroom and the construction itself, all of that is going to be, like I've said, privately funded and paid for by the president himself and many generous patriots who have stepped up.
Included in that funding?
Correct.
Okay, and then can you say, Well, that's right. I'll skip that one.
Thanks, Ouija. Okay.
So
Man,
the
this
White
is
House
all
has
people want to
explained
talk about
that
is the
reason you
ballroom.
didn't submit
Everything going on in the
construction
world.
plans to the NCPC is because that commission, along with others, don't have oversight over demolitions, but only over construction. And so far, you haven't built anything. So can you help us understand, can the president tear down anything he wants without oversight? Can he demolish this building or say the Jefferson Memorial?
So it's not
That's a
the
dumb
president
question.
who came up with that legal opinion himself. That's a legal opinion that's been held by the NCPC for many years. It's written, so we can get you that background and that research if you wish.
Or you
to
could just
include in
find
your
it
reporting,
yourself.
because it is very important. They have ruled consistently. Their general counsel has said when it comes to phase one of this project, the tearing down of the current East Wing structure, a submission is not required legally for that. Only for vertical construction will a submission be required, and that's a legal opinion from them, and we are following that legal opinion. And again, I would just add, can any president do such a thing to the White House grounds? There have been many presidents in the past who have made their mark on this beautiful White House complex.
Including
this
Barack
briefing
Obama.
room, as you all know, was not once a briefing room. It was a swimming pool. There have been presidents who have completely torn down the executive mansion. If you look at what President Truman did, some of the photos of the construction project that took place in those years, I think sitting here today, we're all grateful for those efforts and the modifications that happened at that time. And again, in due time, the East Wing is going to be more beautiful and modern than ever before. And in addition, there will be a big, beautiful ballroom that can hold big parties and state visits for generations to come.
Do they know the
Sounds like
government's
the
still
answer
shut
is
down?
Yes, he can tear down whatever he wants. And then secondly, I mean,
Ouija, that's not what we're saying. That's a legal opinion that's been held for many years. And
interpreting it.
no, it's something that presidents have done for years and years. In fact, I have some photos here. Thank you, Pat, to show you the construction that's taken place on the White House grounds. This is the construction of the West Wing in 1902. Look at this, the construction of the West Terrace in 1902. These images look quite similar to what you and the American people are seeing today, the construction of the East Terrace as well. You look at the construction of the West Wing expansion in 1934. So look, this is a legal opinion that's been held for many years. Look at, this is 1950. It looks a lot like what you were seeing today.
Can he demolish anything he wants?
What do you think
without
that
oversight?
rubble is? How did that rubble get there?
Right, so I'm asking.
It's like she's talking to
and then back
kindergartners.
Go ahead, Reagan.
How do you make rubble?
Reagan, go ahead.
How do you make rubble? How do you think that rubble got there?
It's being reported that
Rubble,
the semi-truck driver suspected of killing 3 people in a DUI
Oh, look, let's get to
crash
some actual
is an illegal
news.
immigrant who came in under the Biden administration. Do you know if California gave him a commercial driver's license? And then it also appears that California largely has not been cooperating with English proficiency standards. I'm wondering if the administration
Clearly.
has any further plans to punish the state.
Yes, I can confirm that California gave this individual a license, and it is something that the Department of Transportation has already looked into. I know Secretary Duffy, who's doing a phenomenal job, has spoken on this many times in the crackdown that the Department of Transportation is taking on these licenses that are wrongfully being issued to people who clearly do not deserve to uphold these positions. As for this case in California, on October 22nd, ICE lodged an immigration detainer for this individual following his arrest by local authorities in California on charges, as you know, of manslaughter while intoxicated and driving under the influence. He killed 3 people, and he first entered the United States in 2022 through the southern border, and he was released into our country by the previous administration. So now ICE has lodged a separate detainer for this individual, and these tragedies are following a disturbing pattern of these criminal illegal aliens being issued commercial vehicle licenses. And
In
so yes, the
California.
Department of Transportation is absolutely cracking down on that. I defer you to them for any specifics.
Venezuela. President Trump has said Maduro doesn't want to mess with the United States, and this administration is continuing to position more military assets towards Venezuela. I'm wondering if the end goal of this narco-terrorist war is to implement a regime change in Venezuela.
The president has spoken on that, Reagan, and I certainly won't get ahead of him. What we've made very clear is that this administration is not going to tolerate international narco-terrorist organizations from trafficking drugs into the United States. And these cartels over time have grown more armed, well-organized, and violent. They have financial means, sophistication, and capabilities needed to operate in the way this administration has. And they have illegally caused the deaths of tens of thousands of American citizens each year. So that's where we are right now with respect to Venezuela, but also any country that is sending purposefully illegal narco-terrorists to the United States of America to bring illegal drugs.
I like that they call them narco-terrorists now. It's like how they changed
The US and Colombia
global
relationship
warming
right
to
now
climate
is at
change
one of its lowest
or
points in
abortion to
decades.
women's
We
health.
heard what President Gustavo Petro had to say about President Trump. We heard yesterday the response from President Trump. Is there any kind of compromises or gestures from the Colombian president that President Trump would like to see in order to de-escalate the tensions? Is it possible a de-escalation?
Yeah, stop sending
We're
drugs.
seeing de-escalation from the unhinged leader of Colombia right now, and I don't think the president, frankly, is interested in that at this point. He spoke on this yesterday, and I don't have anything to add to his comments. Go ahead. Yes.
Thank you, Caroline.
Thank you.
In addition to the ballroom and the Rose Garden
I'm going
patio,
into the back. Sorry. Go ahead.
In addition to the ballroom and the Rose Garden patio, is the president looking at any other renovations or significant kind of projects here at the White House?
Not to my knowledge,
Golly,
no.
that's
but
all they
he's
care
a
about.
builder at heart, clearly.
All they care
and
about.
so his heart and his mind is always churning about how to improve things here on the White House grounds. But at this moment in time, of course, the ballroom is really the president's main priority.
That's amazing.
Kristen.
Last week, President Trump announced that he had a productive call with Vladimir Putin. They scheduled a meeting in Hungary.
All right, here's an
Since
actual
then, he
news
has canceled the
question.
meeting, and he has imposed sanctions on Russian oil companies. Can you talk about what changed that led to this dramatic shift, or even just what occurred in the last week that got us from point A to point B?
It's an actual question
Look,
that could be
the president
important.
has always maintained that he would implement sanctions on Russia when he felt it was appropriate and necessary. And yesterday was that day. I think the president has also long expressed his frustration with Vladimir Putin and, frankly, both sides of this war. And he's always said in order to negotiate a good peace deal, both sides need to be interested in a good peace deal. And he feels as though, unfortunately, from the Russian side as of late, he has not seen enough interest and enough action in terms of moving the ball forward towards peace. And so a meeting between these two leaders is not completely off the table. I think the president and the entire administration hopes that one day that can happen again. But we want to make sure that there's a tangible, positive outcome out of that meeting and that it's a good use of the president's time. Of course, he's traveling to Asia next week. He has a number of events coming up here on the home front as well. He's been incredibly busy, as you all know. You're all tired from covering him and his movements every day. And so we want to make sure it's a good use of the president's time. And the president doesn't want to waste his time, and he said that.
All between the Secretary of State and Lavrov that led President Trump to believe that President Putin or the Russians did not want a peace deal.
That was not the sole reason, no. I think the Secretary Rubio felt that was actually a productive call. But again, the president wants to make sure that a meeting between himself and President Putin will be a good use of his time.
What exactly led to President Trump not believing after his call on Thursday, where he said he did think he wanted peace and wanted a peace deal, to believing that Russians were not?
Again, the president wants to see action, not just talk.
Yeah.
And I think the president is extremely motivated by the success
Actions speak
of
louder
his
than
peace
words,
deal
even
the
in
Middle
Russian.
East to get things done. And he wants this war to come to an end. He's been saying it now for 9 months being in office, and he's grown increasingly frustrated with the lack of progress from both sides of this war. Mary.
Thanks, Caroline. You two quick construction questions, if I can.
Oh
you
my
mentioned
God,
any
with the construction
project comes with changes. The president had initially said that this project wouldn't interfere with or touch the current structure. Now he says to do this properly, he realized that the East Wing had to be demolished. This is the people's house. Why not inform the public of that change and when it was decided that the East Wing would have to be demolished?
Look, again, with any construction project, changes come, and we have informed all of you. We've been keeping you apprised of this project. We've shown you the renderings, and if you look at the renderings, it's very clear the East Wing was going to be modernized. Instead, in fact, I said that in the briefing when we initially introduced this plan to all of you and to the public.
But the East and tearing down are two different things.
Well, again, the plans changed when the president heard counsel from the architects and the construction companies who said that in order for this East Wing to be modern and beautiful for many, many years to come, for it to be a truly strong and stable structure, this phase one that we're now in was necessary. And the president wants to do right by the people's house. And so that's exactly what he's doing. It's going to be, again, like I said, much more stable, strong, secure, and more beautiful than ever once it's complete.
And the First Lady's offices, where will those be? The First Lady's offices, the Social Secretary's office?
In the East Wing.
They will be back where they were?
Yes.
Perfect.
Thank you. Cattle ranchers who supported the president's election have raised some concerns.
I can't hear what she's saying.
Import food from Argentina.
How will the Trump administration support those farmers?
Look, the president hears those concerns. He addressed them yesterday himself. President loves our ranchers, and our ranchers love our president. And in fact, the president did a lot for them in his first term here. They are struggling because of the many horrible policies of the previous administration. The president loves our ranchers, and he also loves American consumers, and he wants to do right by both. So the immediate solution to the problem of the rising cost of beef, the president wants to bring that down, is we have to increase our supply. And so that's what he's doing with respect to these imports. But the president also is looking out for our ranchers with a long-term plan that was released by the Secretary of Agriculture yesterday. It's a 3-part plan. It's very extensive and detailed. I would encourage all of you to read through it. But there's really 3 points to this plan that the president has agreed upon and has entrusted Secretary Rollins to implement. Number 1, strengthening U.S. cattle production through increased grazing access, endangered species reforms, enhanced disaster relief, increased access to capital, and reducing costs for new and young ranchers. We want to incentivize more Americans to get into this noble profession. Lowering long-term costs by cutting inspection costs, increasing market options for consumers with product of USA labeling, and ensuring consumers know that they are eating American beef. It's a good incentive for the American consumer. And lastly, growing the domestic herd while boosting long-term demand to reduce prices for consumers while growing the markets for our ranchers. So President hears them. He has to address both of these problems for the ranchers, but also for the American consumer. He promised to lower costs, and that's what he's committed to doing.
Caroline, thank you. 2 questions not on the ballroom. The first is, there's a Democrat in Texas who's actually running for Congress who said last night during an interview when talking about fighting Republicans and this administration, quote, "If you hit me in my face, I'm not going to punch you back in your face.
Oh, that woman.
I'm going to go across your neck."
Your neck, yeah.
This has obviously really upset those folks over at Turning Point USA after the Charlie Kirk assassination. Just your response to that kind of rhetoric.
Just very jarring rhetoric.
Excuse me.
And I think it's very unacceptable. I hope the people of Texas will do the right thing and reject this person's candidacy. It should have no place in American politics.
And then just a quick second question on oversight Democrats that are saying that they're creating this master ICE tracker, basically tracking all ICE activity. We've seen the protests in New York just yesterday. Homeland Security is saying that this sounds like obstruction of justice. What do you say?
Again, this is actively putting the lives of our ICE agents at risk. We've seen media outlets, in fact, in this room, also write stories about ICE tracker apps that Democrats and other left-wing activists have created to track the location of ICE agents on the ground in our communities. Again, I've said this repeatedly and I will continue to say it. The men and women of ICE are outstanding people. I wish a Democrat on Capitol Hill would actually have the courage or the guts to stand up to their party and sit down with some of these men and women who are doing this incredibly difficult job of enforcing our federal immigration laws. They are, again, simply trying to enforce the law and do their jobs. And if Democrats spent a little bit more time understanding that and also focusing on the people who they are trying to get out of our country every single day. As I spoke about earlier, 3 innocent people in California are dead because an illegal alien who Democrats let into this country was wrongfully issued a trucker's driving license and clearly was not fit for the job because he was driving intoxicated and killed 3 innocent people. Democrats should focus a little bit more on that. Stop trying to fight this president and this administration on every turn and restore law and order. That's all that we and these brave men and women of ICE are trying to do. Mary.
Thanks, Caroline. I have 2 questions, one on San Francisco and one on the No Kings protesters. On San Francisco, the president said that he had a call with the mayor and he was planning on surging there, but now because the mayor really wants to fix it up
the surge is off in San Francisco, by the way.
Is this what Trump hopes happens in pretty much every city?
The president hopes, and I've said this so many times, and I think the president's conversation with the San Francisco mayor last night and his statement today prove the president is willing to work with anyone. Across the aisle, across the country, to do the right thing and clean up America's cities. He is genuinely interested in this effort to make our streets safer, to make our cities safe and clean again. And he heard from the mayor last night who told him that he is going to earnestly try to make his city better on his own. The president heard him out. He said, okay, I'll give you a chance. We'll be watching, and if you need us, we are here. And if I feel as though you continue to fail your citizens, the federal government may have to step in. But we'll continue to watch San Francisco, and that law enforcement operation has now been paused.
Thank you. And then on the No Kings protesters, I saw videos of people explicitly calling for violence against Stephen Miller, against the president, shirts saying we don't have enough assassins, calling for more political violence. Does the
We
president
don't
want
have
to see
enough
arrests here,
assassins.
and are we going to see arrests of these types of explicit calls to violence?
I would think myself, the president, and everyone here at the White House certainly hopes that anyone who is making violent and illegal threats in that way against public officials will be arrested and prosecuted. Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you. Two
All right.
questions. Would the president support the Senate ending the legislative filibuster to end the shutdown?
Oh, good question.
This is something I haven't heard the president talk about much, so I don't want to speak on him for it. I'll let him answer that question himself.
And do you have an update on the NASA administrator nominee? Do you plan to nominate anyone soon?
All right, I'm gonna have to wrap this up shortly, but I did want to get to a couple more things. And Caroline Levitt.
I'll leave that to the president himself. He'll make a decision in due time, and when he does,
She
you will
was
hear
laughing
directly
about
from
something,
him,
so.
as you always do. Back, we'll give our friends in the back a chance. Yes.
As you mentioned at the top of the briefing, USDA has warned that.
Okay. Anyway, so listen. So it's amazing to me. What's really incredible, the number of questions by mainstream news outlets. These are the main news outlets. These are your ABCs, your CNNs, your Wall Street Journals, your Washington Post, all these things. These people are obsessed with President Donald Trump's construction project to the White House. And that was the number one topic of conversation today. More so that there was one question about Vladimir Putin and why President Donald Trump's meeting with Vladimir Putin has been postponed. I would think that as much as these people care for Ukraine and love Ukraine and are just still stricken with grief about what's going on in Ukraine, that would have been the number one topic. Well, that would have been the number one thing they were asking questions about. Vladimir Zelensky, remember everybody clapped and said Slava Ukraina when he came to the Capitol building, and all these journalists were putting, the little flag in their profile photos, but they only asked one question about Vladimir Putin's meeting with President Donald Trump to try to end the war in Ukraine. That doesn't show that they care about Ukraine at all. That shows the opposite. They don't really care about anything. They didn't really talk about the shutdown. There were a handful of shutdown questions. At the end, there was one about the filibuster. But the majority of the questions, again, continue to be about a White House construction project that A, is not funded by the government or the taxpayers, but is from private donations. B, is totally legal. And C, is not at all unprecedented. And also D, has been transparently shared with these same reporters since the idea was conceptualized. Since President Donald Trump came up with the idea, Caroline Levitt brought out the artist rendering. She talked about it. I told you earlier today, I was talking about the 47 Daily Podcast. Do you remember Donald Trump was walking around on the roof one day and all the reporters, they ran over and they said, "President Trump, what are you doing on the roof?" And he goes, "I'm looking at where the ballroom's going to go." He wasn't hiding. This isn't cloak and dagger stuff. This wasn't done without anyone's knowledge. And to suggest anything other than that is just, well, I mean, I would say it's irresponsible and bad journalism, but then again, that's most of the White House press corps. Listen, before we get out of here, if you want to get a copy of my book, Go Trump Yourself, I would recommend you go get a copy of my book, Go Trump Yourself. It's available now for digital download. Go to gotrumpyourself.com. You can get the downloaded ebook and the audiobook together, bundled. And that way you can read it. You can listen to me read it if you don't want to read it. All of these things. It's really phenomenal. It's a fun book. It's a fun read. It's a quick read. And it's going to teach you how to live like President Donald Trump in your own life, how to do what Donald Trump does. The lessons about character and moral values and success in business and everything else, all that we've established and seen on the campaign trail and following President Donald Trump for years. Go TrumpYourself.com. You can click on the link in the description of the video today, the video as well on YouTube or Rumble or any of those other places. Also, thank you so much for subscribing today. Don't forget to, if you haven't yet subscribed, you're going to want to make sure that you do. Because by subscribing, you're going to continue to get the content. By following this podcast, you're going to continue to get the content. By setting the notifications, you're going to get notified every single time we go live. And that's what needs to happen. That's how you're going to stay sharp and fresh and in the know and prepared to fight so we can save the Republic. I apologize. We were going to have a Patriot Club meeting today, but I have to cancel it because I had something come up at 3:00 that I have to take care of. So I apologize, but we've got a pass on the Patriot Club meeting today. We will get back to it on Monday. Otherwise, thank you again for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. Go TrumpYourself.com. Get the book, download it, listen, enjoy.